the statement you made turning up in a Sacco designed car was unquestionable.
Everything's dropped down, the glove box won't close, all the bits are falling off, the dash is all screwy.
And eventually it said, emergency stop incoming.
Hello, and welcome to the fifth installment of the Car Podcast with Chris Harris and his friends. And they really are my only friends. There are no other friends. This is my total friends. This week, we start off with Bruno Sacco. Most of you will know who he is, but if you're not as nerdy as us, let me tell you that he was a genius car designer who passed away last week. He was the head of Mercedes design for many, many years. And I don't think any other individual has had such an influence over a particular brand or its design language over such a period of time. Neil Clifford, can you decide whether you agree with that last statement or not?
I do. I didn't really know about Bruno Sacco as a person, as an individual. I just loved his cars, really. So it's sort of, because I don't read stuff, I just thought those 90s Mercedes are peak Mercedes. They're peak 90s. I couldn't afford them in period, because I was bombing around in a 205 GTI, admiring the senior executives that had the Bruno Saccos. I probably went G60 Corrado was my peak 90s car from an ownership perspective.
Oh, that's a conversation. That's a conversation.
But I always admired from afar the sort of older, richer, posher executives that got into the Bruno Sacco world. And then when you end up owning one, what would have been my first one? Probably the 560 SEL 126, actually, I think. And you start to do a little bit of research and realize that you were enjoying living in peak Germany, right? It was just incredible. And now I know we're going to talk again about the cars later, but anything after that really has gone downhill for Mercedes, basically, isn't it?
You mean post Bruno?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there was something about an era of Mercedes-Benz where it operated on a level above anything that BMW could manage and anything that Audi hadn't even really emerged at that point.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter about the dynamics of the cars. Quite often I always like to refer back to group tests in car magazines. And if you read a car magazine group test in sort of anywhere between 85 and early 90s, let's say, the BMW was always the best to drive. The British car magazine would always give the victory to the Jaguar because they were just hopelessly xenophobic. But the Merc was the one that looked the best. You couldn't understand why its list price was so high. And they always talked about build quality. There was sort of begrudging. Yeah. There'd be a begrudging note that, it's quite well built.
It's the quality, yeah. Maybe it's a Stuttgart thing. It's a Stuttgart thing because 993, 964. I mean, you could have the same conversation, couldn't you? That it was the screws that they could get away with being that long, but they were that long just in case.
Yeah, but they didn't stick out through.
No, it just
they didn't stick out through.
They're just made of titanium, the whole car, wasn't it? It's just built like a submarine, basically.
That group testing is interesting, isn't it? Because when we were growing up, they used to describe that the umbrella style handbrake.
Mm-hmm.
And we think, why is there an umbrella connected to the brake? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
I thought it sounds really clever and interesting. They've clearly deliberately decided that's the right answer, rather than that sort of rather wonky lever that's in my dad's Ford or Rover or Vauxhall Victor or whatever it is. It's a different planet. So yeah, he was.
Yeah.
And actually before a lot of the design, I didn't realize he had an engineering background as well.
Was. Yeah.
So, he's head of engineering before he's head of design. So that global understanding of what a Mercedes should be translated into what Mercedes should look like. And I think their cars, its cars, looked so homogenous and yet distinctive. It was difficult to
Yeah.
describe. You know, on paper, they should have looked ordinary, and and you should have been disappointed. But for some reason, maybe only outside of Ferrari and maybe Rolls-Royce, the statement you made turning up in a Sacco designed car was unquestionable. And I just
Yep.
think, maybe great design is stuff that you don't even need to decipher. You don't even know what design is. You just nod and go, yeah, that's it. That's the one.
And I agree with all of that. And I think your summary introduction really does sum it up. And if I would summarize your summary, I would say he was the greatest car designer of them all.
Oh,
And the reason I do think that, is because for 25 odd years, from that sort of early mid-70s period where they were what they were to where he got them to, he was singularly accountable and responsible for that story and that brand and what it meant to everybody. Even now, we're talking about it now. You know, I was like Neil. I remember seeing my first 126. No, the 450 SEL 6.9, the one before the 126. Somewhere in a motorway service station in the late 70s, thinking, I can't possibly imagine what it felt different to a Rolls Royce or anything. It just was. So he took over from about there onwards.
did he do 107? Did he do 107, or was 129 the first SL?
No, it would have been. So SL, he would have done
129.
129, I think, maybe.
He would have been involved in probably facelifting 107, but 107 was pre-75.
He arrived sort of mid 107. And because, we could talk about Pininfarina or Giugiaro or, all those, but none of those had that singular relationship with a single mark and brand all the way through.
Yeah.
And protected it the way he did. And you could think about, a Giugiaro or Pininfarina or design or whoever it is and think, a Gandini design. And you think, I might occasionally get to see one of those. With Sacco, they're everywhere. They weren't for everyone, as Neil said, even though everyone could enjoy them. And now, actually, they're almost for everyone because there's a little bit of those now available. So for all of those reasons, everything rested on him. I think he is and always will be the greatest ever car designer there has been.
I spoke to Luca about him 2 nights ago. And I said, did you know him? And he said, I did know him. I met him quite a few times. And I said, what were your opinions of him? What did you think of him as a man? Because obviously he's Italian, but lived in, it begins with S, southwest of Stuttgart. And he said, he was a really, really atypical Italian. He said, maybe that is the result of living in Germany and working in Germany for 40 years, 1959 to 1999, I think.
How the hell did he deal with the food? I mean, how did he deal with the food?
Well, listen, and he said what he found about him was that he said what was most atypical about him, he just wasn't a talker. He said he was literally one of the most quietly spoken and one of the guys he'd met in his life who had so little actually to say. And I came across quite a funny word. I read about him yesterday, and he was his title was Ober-Engineer, which I love the idea of, so German, Ober-Engineer. But apparently he was a geometrician. So he performed at some prize level at the age of 17 in geometry and got a particular award in Italy. And you talk about design. The thing about his cars are, they're not these sort of graceful 1950s curves. That's not what he does. All of those cars had a kind of absolute understanding of geometry. And, and he came across this Car and Driver. It's 2 lines, and I think it's really beautiful. It says, Sacco believed that Mercedes design must express and signify technical excellence and could never be used to mask or make up for lack thereof. And you said it,
Nice.
This is an engineer for whom engineering and design are absolutely harmonious, synchronous. You can't say it's ugly, but it works well. And you can't say it's beautiful, but it performs shit.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
have to go together. And is he not, in some ways, engineer designer, the kind of Adrian Newey of the road car world? The guy who understands every
Yeah,
single
I think that's right.
component of a road car and builds these extraordinary cars for 40 years.
Yeah. Yeah. They look like, I mean, you're right, those 90s W124. That's
That's
just,
a fantastic. Tell you what, managed a fantastic quotation. I have
that
to
is
go
good
back. That
quotation.
that absolutely nails it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's
It does.
also clearly he was capable of self-deprecation. I was reading something about him the other night as well, and everyone spent a lot of time eulogizing over his designs. But I gather that he was aware of the fact the 140 was not aesthetically what it should have been. I mean, as a piece of engineering, it's amazing. But
Yeah, I've read that one.
It was one of his products, and he was hugely critical of it. After he's like, basically, she was a bit of a spud. He didn't try and justify it at all. But I think I was first. You know, if I try and think back to the first time I really understood that there was a level of sophistication going on with Mercedes design there wasn't with, let's say, contemporary German brands. I can remember my family had an E30 3 Series, and it was a 320i. I remember for some reason my late father had decided he'd been persuaded not to buy a 325i because the 320 would give you 6-cylinder engine and as much
Six-cylinder.
and it was an absolute shitter, an A352 TEU I think it was, and he hated it. But you know, the E30 was the thing then. It was an A reg one of the early ones.
Yeah, one of the first. Yeah.
And we had it for 2 years, and just towards the end of it, someone we knew bought a very, very early 200. I think it was a carburetor, 200E. You could get a 200 with a carb engine then. It didn't even have a
123.
124.
No, 124.
It was a very early one, and it was red. And
on a B.
it's on a C. It was this one was. It was on a C.
Right.
And they turned up with it. I remember thinking, I mean, it's so basic. It had one, I think it had one wing mirror, and it didn't have a radio. It was just utterly basic. But if you actually looked at it, I remember looking at it up close. First of all, the first thing that struck you was this windscreen wiper, this single windscreen wiper. And I can remember my friend turning it on and saying, "Look at the windscreen wiper." I was like, I'd never seen anything like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I remember the father came out, and it was really the first time I learned to appreciate a quality object as opposed to looking at performance figures. And he said, look at the panel gaps on that BMW, and then look at them on this, and look at the guttering, look at the lack of guttering, how clean the top of the doors are on this car. And I started to view cars differently after that, and that this was an object of absolute quality at a time when you could still persuade people to exchange money for quality over toys. And so what this man was saying ultimately was, this car cost twice as much as your father's BMW. He didn't say that, but I went and looked at the magazine afterwards. It was nearly twice as much as the BMW. It had roughly one half of the performance, but in his mind, it was worth paying for. And a lot of that was down to the way just the look of it, the styling actually was quite futuristic. Because everything else that tried to be futuristic looked like a Ford Sierra or an Audi 100. Was this thing it was just perfection. I still think the 124 is one of the great looking cars.
Yeah.
It's peak car. I had a very similar experience. In fact, the first Mercedes I ever sat in was a Sacco car. It was a 123 wagon. It was a 200T, not even an E, it was a 200T carburetor car. And it belonged to the father of Facility, who I've mentioned before. It was Facility's dad's car. And at the time, my dad had a Rover 3000, an SD1 3000, 3.5 SE. So it was a slight facelift. It was an early 80s, mid 80s, early 80s version of the SD1. I remember going in it. We got taken somewhere, Felicity and I, by her mum and dad. I remember sitting about thinking, it's only a 200. It doesn't feel it's quite Spartan inside. Initially, I didn't get it because I've been sort of enticed and sort of intrigued by the superficial appeal of this Rover 3. It's got a V8, 3.5-litre engine. This has got a 4-cylinder. And slowly I kind of got, it's not the same thing. You're not comparing like with like, very sadly. I never told Facility this. She may be listening to now. I'm sure she's an avid listener of our podcast, but I did actually think it's a slightly better car than Dad's Rover. Yeah, they're amazing.
The thing is, the interior, if you get in an E30 now, the quality which you thought was good in
Yeah, bit
87,
saggy.
it's shit now. You know, everything's dropped down, the glove box won't close, all the bits are falling off, the dash is all screwy. You're getting in 190 or you're getting a 124 now, it feels brand new still.
Yeah. The 190, we're going to talk about the cars a bit later, but I think the 190, the second
190.
generation, the 201.
I think it's a car that I've never owned, but you think about it, it's a magical little car.
That's the Senna. That is the Senna Nürburgring car. I mean, that is the car. The
2.3 Cosworth.
But my mate had a 2.6. You know, he was a dude in Portsmouth.
Yeah.
We were all on 100 quid a week or whatever, and he worked down the docks. It's like the best job in the world in Portsmouth. And he had a 190 2.6.
Auto or manual?
Manual in red.
Yeah. They were all red, that kind of arena red type colour.
Yeah, and it was like, my God, that's a fabulous car. We're all in Mark II Escorts or Orions.
Yeah. Bit of a gap.
There's a Burgundy, and it's absolutely mint.
Yeah, Burgundy.
123 wagon, 200 yards away from where I'm sitting right now. I stare at it every time I walk past. The chrome on the roof, the chrome rail on the roof is absolutely perfect. What they've done is they've had the interior, just the very back reupholstered so they can put a great big dog basket in it. It's owned by a reasonably famous actor, and he must have had it from new. And when you see something like that that's been loved and looked after, honestly, it is an object of absolute beauty.
And if you're a Bruno virgin, you need to, you're gonna have to sort of break the virginity here on that.
So under that heading, remember, if you look at my new OnlyFans channel, Manish, remember we talked about how you break into a car?
Yes.
I've got an OnlyFans channel now. I'll give you a guest login.
Thank you.
And you can rehearse with me how you sort of maneuver the thing up and down. That one, that could be your car tomorrow night.
Yeah, but because Bruno was so organised, it's probably difficult to steal them as well, because they were just complete motor cars. There's probably a steel plate to stop that going on. Anyhow, that's not the last you're going to hear about Bruno, because the two-car garage section will be devoted to him later on. In the meantime, Aston Martin, about whom we eulogised in terms of their Formula One situation a couple of weeks ago, has just announced some road car results, which are, and I remember this from my work as a financial journalist, utter shit.
Yeah, that's a technical term.
Yes. So Aston's in a spot of bother, and I want us just to cast our, apart from Mr. Cooper and Mr. Clifford, so myself and Manish will cast our non-expert eye over them, and the two big brains can tell us. However, before we say that, I want to just add a couple of quotations that have come out of the announcements this week. So the bottom line is that the losses are rising by 25% to just shy of 300 million this year. And that's on the back of us being promised for several years they were not going to be that way. However, Adrian Hallmark, the new boss, who I believe would have had quite a difficult week because he's had to make some announcements he wouldn't want to, has talked of, and I quote, a strategic realignment. That's largely because they're going to sell 1,000 fewer cars this year than expected. So they're going to sell 6,000 rather than 7,000. That's 14%, I think. But this sentence was uttered. And if he managed to say this with a straight face, then he definitely deserves every penny of his, I'm sure, generous stipend. We're going to smooth the cadence of production in future quarters. I mean, that is one of the best pieces of wonk speak I've ever heard in my life. Yeah. If there was a private eye quarter designed to making up the best management bullshit, then that would win every single time. But you couldn't make it up. I'd like to say, before we start laying into Aston a bit, because the numbers are all over the place, we all wanted to succeed. The world's a better place with Aston Martin doing well. But at the moment, I think they're getting it wrong. Neil Clifford.
Oh, bloody hell. Who would have thought the F1 team would be worth more than the car company? That's just Manish gave us that quote, I think, a week or two ago. And, what is it, 1.2 billion market cap?
The car company or the team?
No, the car company.
Yeah, then it probably is worth more.
So it probably is worth about the same, which may end up being the masterful move in the end, because who knows whether the F1 team's worth 2 billion. So maybe Lawrence is going to make a shed load of money just on not the thing he started with. But frankly, we all want it to so desperately be successful. And frankly, in theory, they're doing all the right things as well, because the cars look a lot better. If we said a year or two ago, what would you want to improve? Make them look prettier and sort out the interior. They've sort of done all that, haven't they? I suppose the challenge is it's bloody hard. And if the strategy would have been started 50 years ago, as in be the British Ferrari, then it would have been fine. But to try to reverse or speed up a heritage strategy and try and make your value of brand be equal to or similar to Ferrari with a relatively choppy period ever since James Bond gave up, it's quite a tricky bloody strategy, isn't it? And you know what? I thought, why don't I own one, or why don't I go on why am I on the configurator and thinking about getting a DB12? Or I so want to love it, but it sort of leaves me slightly cold. I'm talking about being a consumer now.
Yeah.
If someone said to me, you've got to go and spend 200 grand or 250 grand on a GT car, I would just do a Bentley. I wouldn't go Aston. And that's complicated reasons which we can go on for hours about why I would make that decision. Maybe the new guy, who's obviously ex-Bentley, maybe he's just kitchen sinking the accounts. Maybe he's got one chance to tell Lawrence how bad it is. Maybe it isn't quite this bad. Maybe he's going to be a legend this time next year when he's up 50%. As a decision, as a consumer, I've never been a DB5 guy. I've never been, even though I love the DB5 a bit, I don't want to look like James Bond in that obviously sort of way. So I've never been someone that really gets that James Bond thing. So I think it's frankly bloody difficult to do the job. And if you're going to buy that type of car, I think Bentley's in front, and it's bloody difficult for Aston to get ahead of them.
I think before I ask Manish to answer this or to comment, what's really the one thing I wanted to say halfway through that before you said it was, Aston Martin should have sold you a car, really. And if they can't sell you a car, then that's a problem. You've got all the other brands. You're an absolute tragic. You've got all sorts of maths issues like the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you don't own a current or Aston Martin from the last 5 or 6 years is a sort of metaphor for their failure, I think.
You're the bellwether customer.
Yeah.
I don't naturally get it when everyone says, oh, whatever. I don't even know what those bloody different versions are. The Vanquish is better than the DB11, or you've got to get the Ultimate Series 707 Vanquish, because I'm obsessed with cars. I don't even they all look the fucking same. And maybe in some respects that's good because they are quite good looking, but then I never can really tell the difference.
Yeah.
And it's not a driver's car, because whenever you read the journalists, they're like, it's really pretty, but get the Porsche. Or it's really pretty, but get the Ferrari.
Or it's not as comfortable as a Bentley.
or it's not as comfortable as Bentley. I'm not a Lamborghini guy anyway, and that's a totally different world over here. Modern Lamborghini, it's never ticked my box at all. So to me, it's fallen down the sofa.
Tell you what, I love it when we pull the string on his back. It's absolutely brilliant. Manish, what do you make of it?
You know, Neil just said at the end what I was going to start with, which is I've got the website here. Thrill-driven Vantage, engineered for real drivers. Icon-driven DB12, the world's first super tourer, 2 body styles. Zenith-driven Vanquish, the apex of British mastery. DBX, power-driven, the supercar of SUVs. Mastery-driven Valhalla, the pinnacle of driver engagement.
Is this a fast show sketch?
I wish it was. Impossible-driven Aston Martin Valkyrie, pushing performance.
Oh, I thought that was a quote from Alonso from Impossible.
Yeah.
It's impossible to drive it.
Pushing one car. Retro futurism Valor, limited
Is it-
edition.
It's just like,
It is. How about this though? For your sins, valiant, in moderation, incarnate.
After all that, baptized in the flames of adventure actually sounds pretty good. That's how bad it is.
I mean, but if Neil has a problem having some kind of intuitive understanding of what each model is and where they roughly sit, what hope is there for any kind of mortal? Forget about a Sacco virgin. Okay, I mean, I wouldn't know where to begin with that. And what I see are a bunch of numbers. The cars look broadly similar to me. And I think, you know, what does Mr. Cooper say at the end of that? But not as comfortable as a Bentley.
I mean, they had a bloody hiccup with that Vantage, because the modern Vantage, you know, whatever, the V8 and the V12 and all, that was quite a pretty car. Never bought one, but that was lovely. And then the new Vantage, they messed it up, didn't they? It had a hair lip. It was ugly at the back. They then tried to fix it with a better front, but they didn't fix the back. That was a bit of a 5-year cock up. That new Vantage, the new Vantage. They fixed the front, but didn't fix the back. They fixed the interior. That should be a car that I should be like, oh, sod the 992. I'm over Porsche anyway, which I sort of am a bit because I'm not really that into the 992. I should be looking at that new Vantage and saying, that's a cool car. But for some reason, I don't. And I can't.
Doesn't it sound like
it
doesn't it sound to, I mean, I'm just looking at all of this, but it sounds like they should be making 2 cars. That's it. And they should make a few variations within those 2 cars. They should make something.
I think DB12 is actually a bloody good looking car. It's particularly the Cabriolet.
I think they only make 1 car. Well, they make 2 cars. They make an SUV, and they've got a load of sports cars that look the same.
Yeah.
But I think I'll answer the question why Neil doesn't want one. I think there are more people now that don't want to look like James Bond than there were. Ooh. I think it's a bit of a problem. I think the James Bond connotation goes both ways. You know, when you see a sort of 12, 13-year-old V8 Vantage driving down the motorway with a number plate that either tries to spell 007 or spy, you sort of look at it and think, I'm pleased for him, but that's not me. You know, if he wants to pretend he's James Bond, that's fine. I think it's a little bit juvenile, but I get it. It's, you know, that's what you do. And I love James Bond films. But I think Neil Clifford doesn't want to own a DB12 because people will look at him and think, he thinks he's James Bond.
I think there's a bit of that. I think there may be a bit of that. I remember going into, it's closed now, there's an Aston Martin dealer in Amersham.
Oh, is that closed?
Yeah, it's closed. It's a pet shop now. Like genuinely, but pet shops are everywhere now, aren't they? They're the new bloody newsagent pet shop. I remember the guy really studiously telling me, wow, an Aston Martin customer is very different because he's dreamt of one all his life. It's not new money as much as Porsche or Ferrari. He saves up. It's a gift to himself on his retirement or his semi-retirement, or he's cashing in his share options. he's thought for 10 years to buy this Aston Martin. Maybe that guy is choosing Bentley
Yeah.
because Bentley are doing super well, aren't they? I mean, that Continental, it knocked it out of the park every iteration. And it's not quite sporty enough to play in Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini world. It's sort of, the image is cool, but I think maybe you're right a little bit, Chris, that it's got some connotations that are not perfect, and it's a bit of an old geezer's car.
Yeah. Chris Cooper, what do you think?
Let me add a couple of things which expand on what Neil and Yul have said. Any organization which sort of, in part publicly, sets out to be the British version of something else which is the target, it never feels like a good enough answer. It's always a bit catch up. It's always a bit, yes, but what do you want to be? What is a British version of that? I don't know what that means. My consulting firm worked with Aston Martin a little bit in the late 90s when they first went to Bloxham, when they were assembling the DB7 in that Tom Walkinshaw factory, and they were all catching fire because the product wasn't really very well built, even though DB7 sold absolutely tons. And I remember talking to the sales and marketing director and the CEO, both of them were very sensible, clever people. But then and now, and the baptized in the flames of adventure, I know we take the piss out of it, but there's a serious point to that. What on earth does that mean? What on earth you try? I don't know, the keen harpist. I mean, they're just, Jaguar's done the same thing and maybe it's gone forever, Jaguar. They both formed the same trap, although I think Jaguar's got a better excuse for it in some respects, because they did have an identity, they just didn't like it. I'm not sure beyond James Bond, for the reasons you've said. I bought, the last Aston I had was a DB9 convertible that I bought from that place in Amersham. And I had it for about 6 months. Mr. Harris, you'll remember this.
What was the gearbox?
It was the Steptronic 2.
Oh,
because you couldn't really get, it was a demonstrator car. And I thought, I'll try and get they did this manual conversion. It cost about 30 grand to have a manual conversion. I didn't quite fit it. It was a very big car. I didn't quite fit into it. I mean, at the bottom line here, and we talked about the F1 team, and we talked about how brilliant he'd been in getting Newey. And whenever we talk about F1, we all know, because we're nerdy and obsessed about it, winning in F1 is really, really hard. It's really, really hard. Look how hard it's been for Mercedes, even to maintain what they were doing. And they've got thousands of the best brains, highest paid brains, best driver the world's ever seen, and they're finding it difficult. Turns out it's a walk in a park compared to running a car company.
Yeah.
I give you Ineos Grenadier. In fact, I say I give you one. If we went around there, they probably would give us one, because they're not selling them. This, in the 8 months to the end of August last year in the UK, they sold this farmer's car about 800. Same period this year, less than 200. It's dying. There are all kinds of reasons. And in fact, it's Aston got the same problems here as well. Some of their supply chain business have gone out. So Ineos probably isn't going to assemble or complete the manufacture of any more Grenadiers this year.
Wow.
Because some trim components, other stuff, Aston has the same problem. If you dig into what Adrian Hallmark's been saying.
Oh, no, yeah, in fairness, Recaro and Iceman have affected both of those companies badly in supply chain.
They have. But I think
if you look at the to-do list that Lawrence had, he's done a lot of it. He's improved that interior that was 5 years behind what it should have been. He's made them look better, actually. I think DB12 is a very pretty car.
Can I add something? As a total bystander and someone who reads the financial press every day, or tries to, and doesn't really understand half of it because I'm just numeric and I'm an idiot. There's one side of this that never gets discussed that I think would fix Aston Martin's problems. I think it makes a good car. I really do. I've driven DB12, I've driven V8, I've driven the new Vantage, and I've got a video that will come out on the Vantage quite soon. I've held on to it for a while, but my only suggestion there is that I don't think they finish their cars in terms of particularly the chassis and some of the engine calibration to the extent that maybe its rivals do. And I get the feeling that they're being pushed to market early, whereas I think they could have spent a bit more time. Some of it's a bit unresolved, but they're undeniably characterful. And I do think Aston Martin should be front-engine GT cars, really. The mid-engine thing, I'm not quite sure about. My big problem is that Lawrence consistently makes these very bold claims that never happen. I'd be much happier with Aston Martin if from the start he'd just gone, look, it's going to be fucking tough, this. Bear with us. What I can't understand is that every year we get these massive bullish statements. They don't come true. Now, Neil and Chris will tell me that that's all linked into the IPO, but that ship sailed, doesn't it? It is now historically regarded as one of the worst IPOs ever.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it was in a period of IPOs that were all pretty spectacularly awful. I mean, the share price is down to 3% of what it was at IPO. But some of that excitement is clearly about generating some of the debt restructuring that they've needed to go through a number of times to raise more cash to keep the business going, because they keep running out of cash. So they've got to be quite bullish. Otherwise, it's sort of, give us more cash, but I'm not sure you're going to get it back. Probably isn't a very compelling sales pitch.
Isn't the issue that DBX has failed?
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't done as
Really?
well.
Isn't it?
I mean, as a product, it hasn't done what Bentayga has done for Bentley.
Yeah.
You could argue Bentley's, the Continental, the Flying Spur, the Mulsanne, they all look a bit the same to some people, but the product is clearly strong enough.
Look at Urus.
Massive.
No, thank you. I'd rather not.
No,
sure,
but it's
massive.
saved Lamborghini.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All the young kids buy it. Chris, there was one thing that you said that I would pick up on. It's the extension of the concept that this is no longer, James Bond's no longer a kind of selling factor. And I was thinking, I've got this very peculiar hobby, which is I love watching, if I can find them, old 70s and occasionally 80s British shows. I don't know why I do it. I look at them, I watch them. I'm going through this phase of, do you remember there was a show called Warship that was on?
Yes.
Oh, I love that.
You're a bit young for this, Chris.
What was the name of the warship in Warship?
Heart Royal.
No. She's the HMS. Oh my God. I watched an episode 2 nights ago. This is the Alzheimer's kicking
I know.
in. Go on.
HMS Hero.
Hero, of course, Hero.
Yeah.
They call it the Hero. But the point is that it's very stilted. Sort of this whole mid to late 70s, commanders, everybody wears a tie, and everybody, number 1, number 3, call the master at arms. I do wonder whether this car has real connotations of that. There's a kind of almost pre-Thatcher British gent about it that just does not hook up with anyone in the world at all. A Bentley, you were saying it, there's no objective reason maybe that a Bentley should sell, but it's how it makes you feel. If you're Chinese, if you're Indian, if you're American, you get into one of these things and you feel like $1 billion. I mean, those cars make you feel like $1 billion. Does this really make you feel like you're coming off HMS Hero? Taking your naval jacket off and putting on a blazer and getting into this. I mean, where are you going? Which club are you going to with this car? And what you're right. I think the car, there's some emotional meaning that is missing here. And, we're all touching upon different bases, but ultimately you imagine yourself. I know why I bought Lola. I imagine the kind of ideal version of me getting into the ideal version of her. Now, whether that has anything to do with reality, God knows.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, where do you drive a V12 engined car in 20 miles an hour London? How many trips do I really make? I don't go to Stuttgart, but I had some vision of me. I could never have a vision of me, even in red trousers and a blazer, getting into this thing. Never.
I'm now going to be a total contrarian and say that I would still love the last DBS. I just think I had one for a bit. It's an absolutely sensational GT car, much more usable than an 812, naffing fast, looks great.
Yeah.
Maybe the reason I don't own one is I don't want to spend that money, but I would love one. In fact, this conversation, we should all go and buy one. Neil Clifford, you should. It's actually illegal that you don't have an Aston Martin.
Yeah,
you're ferociously patriotic, and you should own one. In fact, that's it. Everyone hassle him. He should have one. Right.
Yeah. Late model DB9, the run-out DB9 GT.
Oh,
that's a car.
The dash is ugly as hell.
Yeah.
Speaking of ugly things, if you were a car, what would you be?
I've been Aston Martin.
I posed this question to my fellow podcasters a couple of days ago. The explanation needs to be not too long, and you have to keep the audience entertained. Okay, here we go. Neil Clifford, if you were a car, what would you be?
Can start with me again. Okay, I did a list as I was driving along this morning. I was born in 1967. We've got to have a judgment here on whether mine is better than Chris Harris's. I was born in 1967. I'm therefore old. I'm good at multitasking. I'm practical and helpful, but I'm slow. I'm big on the outside, but small on the inside.
Oh.
This is a genuine thing that actually happened. My favorite color is navy blue. I'm British and I'm trying to be cool, but I'm fundamentally shit. What am I? I am the car that I was driving as I was thinking about that. It's true. This actually fucking happened. It's a classic Range Rover on an M Reg, and Range Rovers were invented in 1967 when I was born. So
Right,
I'm
lads.
a navy blue Range Rover.
Again, the podcast has to end. That's so perfect. It's so perfect.
And actually, that actually happened. That 5 minutes of thinking actually happened, and I was inside driving myself.
Very, very good.
Chris
I'm going
Harris?
to go for Manish next.
Funny, I had a very similar kind of epiphany, but a different conclusion. I was going to say very sort of, I hope sarcastically, I'm a very smart car, but I also learned back on, I was born in 1967.
Were you?
Yes, and I am small, I'm light, and I'm driven by a very unusual, and I think unusually precise engine. I
RO80.
think
RO80.
not
NSU RO80.
Dennis, how dare you? How dare
Do you-
you? I have
do you
no
leap?
German in me at all. Nothing. I've always absolutely loved Italy. I couldn't possibly be a Morris Oxford if I had to be made in India. So I thought the car that I would most like to be, and I thought I had nice proportions when I was at university, was an Alfa Romeo Alpha 33 Stradale.
Jesus Christ, Manish. There's not a lot of modesty in that. You've just
None
chosen
at
one
all.
of the four most beautiful cars ever made.
Quite right, and that's basically what I think I am. I'm an Alpha 33 Stradale. Light, might not have the ultimate power, but power to weigh nothing.
I don't think he
That's just
studied
me.
modesty.
Wow.
Fighting
Okay,
talk.
whilst we digest the fact that Manish has just compared himself to one of the best looking cars ever made, we'll move on to Chris Cooper.
This question really stopped me short. It's a really interesting question because it gets to the heart of who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? And it actually got quite emotional because I actually don't know who I am.
Ooh.
I actually don't know who I am. I'm adopted. Chris, you know that.
Yeah.
Some of my friends and family know that.
There's that.
And I was in that generation of Scottish children that was adopted. You know, Nicky Campbell, the Radio 1 DJ, made a lot of program about it. I'm one of them. My adoptive parents died. My father died last couple of years. And this one, I actually got quite emotional this morning thinking about this, thinking, actually, who do I think I am? And I have good days and bad days. And some days I think I could be in the 1997 Arrows F1 car that Damon Hill nearly won the Hungarian Grand Prix.
Yes.
And got a puncture on the last lap.
Yeah.
Some days I think that's me all over. Other days I could be E63 Mercedes estate, it could do almost anything. There are some days I think when you've got that, and we're all like this, you've got that world champion feel, and you think, I could do almost anything. I've had a day today. When we started this, I said to them, I've had a shit day today. So I thought I'd better ask Lynn and the boys. You can find me about this later. I asked Lynn and the boys, who do you think I am as a car? Finley said, I think, Dad, you'd be a Rover SD1 Vitesse, twin plenum, homologation special.
Velour.
Because it's sort of that era, quite classy, bit shit if you get to know him quite well. Not that bad, quite fast, quite neutral handling. Cameron said, I think you'd be an E28 M5.
Oh,
And then Lynn said, you'd be an Aston V12 Vantage, the proper one from a few years, and not the one recent one.
Yep.
Thinks he's quite classy, but he's a bit agricultural underneath. Very expensive to run. He's very expensive to run.
Yeah.
Sometimes slightly a bit unreliable. So I'm going to continue thinking about who I think I am. But anybody who's got any suggestions, I almost wonder whether we should do each other. We should do each other.
I think
fun.
this is the first of a few of these, so we will do each other a bit like
Yeah.
Secret Santa. Okay.
Yeah. Finley said, "Why don't you do?" Finley said to me, "Why don't you do Neil first off?" So I thought, I'm going to suggest to you guys, I'm going to do one of you. We should do each other next time.
We should, but the
I
problem
think it's
is
a really. I love Neil's answer because it's a great answer. It's a great way of getting it. But for us car nerds who are cars made me, cars are me. It's my happy place. It's my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So it's a really good way of thinking, helping me think the question: who do I think I am? Great question.
Okay. Does this beat Neil's? I don't know, but it came to me very quickly when I asked the question. I am the current BMW M2. I am small, but I am surprisingly heavy. I can be fast. I can be practical. I can be fucking lethal. To most people, I'm ugly, but to a few, I'm not. And I won't be remembered fondly.
See, that's not who you are to me, but it's a great answer.
Yeah.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's it makes you study what's inside your belly button, this one.
So I'll tell you what, in the comment section of the YouTube page or on the comment section of Instagram, have a go at it. If you want to share them, share them. Or if you've got mates that you love or you have WhatsApp groups, ask it in your WhatsApp groups. Because it's one that, it's a good look in the mirror, that one. It's a good look in the mirror. Now, onto a bit more levity, but hopefully that involves a bit of spittle. What's the worst piece of new car tech that you've driven for a while? I'm going straight in now. Okay, so a couple of days ago, with the help of Mr. Cooper, I bought an Alpina D3. It's done 40,000 miles. It's a remarkable vehicle. It's just, it's lovely. But I then drove another vehicle that's just as good, really, on paper, and should be even better. But it had an electronic handbrake, and the Alpina has a normal handbrake. I have never driven a modern car that has an electronic handbrake that I don't utterly fucking detest. I just think it's the worst invention of modern times. I'm sorry. I'm not one instance have I ever thought it's anything other than shit. Rant over, move on. Manish, new car tech.
Basically all new car steering wheels, too many buttons. That's it.
Yeah.
Just far too many buttons. And there's one particular button. A friend took delivery of his Purosangue, and it has got that Nintendo four-way rocker switch thing joke on the right-hand spoke. What, it costs 2p. How can they put that into a billion-quid car? I just don't understand that at all. And he can't drive and look at his right thumb at the same time. He literally cannot do that. He keeps saying, I can't do this. I can't turn the radio on. I can't do. You just buy this £500 million car and you're just looking forward. But just bad. All modern steering wheels, but that four-way rocker switch, the worst.
Neil Clifford.
Lane assist. It is the reason why I won't buy a fucking new car ever again.
Another reason, yeah.
Honestly, it's actually dangerous, isn't it? I mean, is it just me? You know, my wife hates it. She wants to go back to the Golf 7. We've got a Golf 8. It's got a load of other weird shit. That dashboard's terrible. It's all, that whole car is shit, frankly, the Golf 8. Half the buttons aren't illuminated. It almost kills you if you're trying to reverse into something and it thinks you're going to, you know, die. The lane assist wobble when you're, you know, you're close to the line, but you're not going over the line, or you're just moving out without indicating. Maybe I should be indicating more often, but it's scary. She hates it. I can't imagine that it's saved many lives. That
it's done the opposite.
Yeah,
I think the worst piece of new car tech. I've got two. The worst piece of new car tech nearly killed me. It was a version of that lane assist. I won't say what the car and the brand was. I can. And it had one of those. It had switchable things. You could. The bizarre thing was you could switch it up.
Yes.
To be almost more autonomous. You think, oh, that means I can be less attentive. I can, you know, the odd little hand on the tiller now and again, because that's what the little switcheroo thing does.
Yes.
And on this unnamed car, it got into a bit of a strop over a period of a few weeks where it seemed to think I wasn't in control of the car. I like to think it's my super smooth driving style. It didn't feel or measure undue torque or jerkiness at the wheel. So it'd say, oh, attention, takes the control of the vehicle on the highway. And it would just keep shouting at me, take control. So I grab the wheel, do a bit of wiggling, and say, attention, takes the control. And eventually it said, emergency stop incoming. And a couple of times on the motorway in the overtaking lane, when I was overtaking people, officer person, it decided that I was so out of control because for whatever reason, its little brain had decided I wasn't in control, even though my arse was weighing on the seat. I was moving the steering wheel. I was using indicators, even though I wasn't, all the things that would try and trigger it. And then it just applied an emergency stop to the brakes.
Wow.
Yes.
And I couldn't do anything. It was one of those, it was worse than racing in the rain or the fog where you think, I can't do anything. I tried getting my toe under the brake pedal to try and bring it up. I thought, am I left foot braking? I just tried everything. And it was so, you could feel the anti-lock going that skidding thing. Luckily, the bloke behind me didn't hit me. It's gone mad. It's gone mad. It's designed... I thought when variable ratio steering arrived, that was kind of an early sign of. I remember trying it when the 6 Series first arrived in the early 2000s. I got invited to something at Rockingham, and one of the cars said, "I won't buy a car with on it. That is designed from people who can't steer and would ordinarily crash rather than steering properly." No, and that lane assist attention deficit sort of thing
Is bad.
Is bad and whatever. For everyday car, though, because you can sort of, in the end, I said, look, which fuse is it? I'm just pulling the fucking fuse out. But the one you can't pull the fuse out on is the haptic touch screen. All the buttons on the current model Range Rover literally has no buttons on the dashboard. There's a button to start it. Temperature controls, heated seats, everything is in some layer in the menu. When you're sat in the showroom, it's a car that needs a co-driver. You cannot operate it without a co-driver. Why? Because it's cheaper. It's mad.
I'm sitting in a room actually in Stuttgart at the moment because I'm the guest of a car maker, and I've just been looking at a new.
I'll give you the chassis number.
Okay, so I've just been looking at the new the revised GT3, about which I can tell you exclusively. It's got 4 wheels and the engine's in the back. That's all I can tell you at the moment. And I was talking about the screens, and I said, well, of course it makes it cheaper, and they went, no, it doesn't.
Well, then why are they doing it?
I don't know, but actually, by the time you go back to the screen maker and get them to do the updates, they charge you a license fee and all the other stuff. He says people are saying it's no cheaper, so it's a very strange situation. But that's it for our whinging old bastard section. We've whinged quite a lot today, so let's be a bit more uplifting. We're not going to do we're not actually going to do music today. We're going to do a YouTube choice before we do our two-car garage. Okay, so swapping things around a little bit. So, gentlemen, please give us a YouTube clip, and we'll put the URLs up on here, and we'll speak about them, so you can find them on YouTube if you're just listening on Spotify or on Apple. Manish, what clip would you advise people or recommend people that would give them something to make their lives a bit better over the next week?
I found something absolutely wonderful. In 1956, at the end of 1956, straight early 57, Peter Collins convinced Mike Hawthorne to come back to Ferrari and drive for the old man. And it's supposed to be a legendary story. This happened at the premiere of a movie called Checkpoint. And Checkpoint is a motor racing movie, and there was a posh premiere in Leicester Square. And here's the most amazing thing about Checkpoint. It was shot at the Mille Miglia of 1956 using some of the best movie cameras that you've ever seen in your life. And it was shot in Technicolor.
Nice.
And we found a 5-minute clip of Checkpoint on YouTube. The film stars Stanley Baxter. Some of the shots, I mean, it starts in Piazza della Loggia. You see all the drivers in their beautiful powder blue uniforms, Maseratis, Mercedes, Ferraris, and you just have to watch this. And the other fun bit about this is, I mean, it's not just in and around Brescia. You see these cars, they've actually got some camera mounted, some cameras mounted on cars, so you can actually see them going past coastal roads and things. And what's really fun about this is occasionally they'll just have a nice blue screen where Stanley Baxter will be there going like that. It's great. So Checkpoint, have a look at this clip. 5 minutes of your life that you will not regret.
I'm watching these at the airport when I go in there in about an hour's time. Neil, what are you going to choose?
My most frequented channel on YouTube is what I'm going to suggest. There's two, actually. One is Harry's Garage, and everyone watches that because what else is there to do on a Sunday night when Country File is finished? But actually, my favorite really is Big Jet TV.
Oh, yeah.
We've talked about it before, I think.
Easy, son.
Whenever it's live, and if it's even slightly windy outside, I check on YouTube to see whether he's up a ladder. Because I adore aeroplanes as much as I adore cars. My mum used to drive me in a little Mark 1 Escort PCR 924M up to Heathrow from Portsmouth with my little aircraft markings 1977 to find the Braniff 747 SP. I never saw the Braniff 747 SP, but I really wanted to. And so Big Jet TV takes me back to being 12.
I love it. Chris Cooper.
We talked about Lotus a couple of pods ago, where they got to. And the boys and I were talking about it, and Cameron sent me a link. It's an onboard. It's one of those POV ones, but the film's probably a little bit older than sort of some of that. It's an onboard of a Lotus Elise GT1. This is an early 2000s FIA GT car. Got a big V8 in it, manual gearbox, but the gear stick's on the right-hand side of the car. Track somewhere in Italy, I think. We'll put the link up. And it's just it's a Lotus racing car being driven absolutely at the limit. You can feel everything, every movement. It looks and feels like you think a Lotus Elise racing car should go. If you love onboards and you love that feeling of, I can almost feel myself there with the car just at the edge of adhesion. I can just see he's carried a bit too much momentum into that one. It's going to yaw a bit there and I have to put a bit of a lock in. And it's a Lotus. It's a bloody Lotus and it's bloody lovely.
I'm so in love with the film I'm about to mention. I just fear I might have mentioned it before. My memory's not very good. So if I have mentioned this before, then I punish myself and I'll have to come up with another one for next week. Have I ever introduced you to Mr. Giles of the Institute of Advanced Motoring driving from London to Bath?
No.
No, I've watched it though.
Okay. If
Yeah.
you've
I
watched
used to
it,
be an IAM member.
yeah. Well, so this is just a genius film.
Yeah.
It's just a camera in a car as a member of the IOM talks about how to drive a motor car in 1963 from London to Bath.
Oh, I'm in.
It's
That's
lovely.
It is,
that's great.
and he literally talk and he anyhow, the best bit is he comes up behind some weird, like a Humber or something in the outside lane of the A4. And he says, and he's got a lovely West Country drawl, as Mr. Isles. And he says, I will give him a flash of the lights to get him out of the way. I'll give him a second flash. He still isn't moving. He's not even aware I'm there. So I'll now honk my horn, and I'll honk my horn again. You see now he's moving over. I shall now accelerate and overtake him. As he comes past, this bloke puts his fingers out the window and gives him 2 fingers, gives him like that. And he, in response, says this. Here we go. I just need to get this up on my telephone. In response to being given 2 fingers, which we know what it means, he says, he's giving me the V sign. I can't think why he thinks I'm interested in his politics.
It's really good, that. It's really good.
So,
am I the only one who's done the Institute of Advanced Motoring Drivers examination?
Yes, they wouldn't let
I
me
might
into
be.
that.
I did it just after I passed my test. It must have been early, mid-80s. Early 80s, probably. And they used to say to you, imagine you
don't give it away. Don't give it away. That's a story for another day. We want to hear that as a section. Do not give that gold away. Now,
okay.
I've got to go get an aeroplane fairly soon. Can we do a quick 2-car garage? So you're allowed any 2 Bruno Mercedes, and preferably, as Neil Clifford specified, ones that you've owned. That's going to limit Manish because he's only ever owned 1 car in his life. Oh, sorry, 2 cars.
My daddy.
Yes, Dad. And I don't know how many Chris has had, but I suspect he's had at least 1. Let's start with Neil Clifford, who's owned, I suspect, upwards of 40 Bruno Sacco Mercedes.
No. Okay. SL R129 in the non-metallic green. I found it on a famous website, and it had the cloth check interior, but it was an early car with the bright orange headlamps and the 2-tone body. And actually, it was the biggest piece of shit ever. Unfortunately, looked gorgeous, looked cool, but it had that licorice instead of the wiring loom situation. Therefore, everything went wrong, and I spent a fortune, and it never worked, and I got rid of it for half of what I paid for it. So that's one. Still cool, though. It's probably still for sale if I look for it. And then I had probably, I think, the coolest Sacco car, which is a E60 W124 black with that weird diamond leather and the Evo wheels. It was owned by the Tetra Pak billionaire. I think I bought it for 28 grand, thought I was a legend and sold it for 35, and it's now worth 225,000 quid because they only ever made 49, and it was 40,000 kilometers from new. And it's just peak Sacco, probably.
It's Manish.
First one would be the W123 Mercedes 300E in very light blue with dark blue leather because my dad had one.
Nice.
And I love that car. It was just such a doctor's car. That was
it. CE or an E?
E, just the E, the 4 doors. And my personal absolute favorite has to be the W201 190 Senna. It just has to be that car. You've seen it, haven't you, at the Mercedes Museum?
Oh, the 2.316, yeah.
Yeah, God, that thing. Every time I see it and think about Niki Lauda being turfed off down and through there, and then Alain Prost being turfed off the other way. It's just the idea of this 24-year-old with about 4 races under his belt with Tolman.
I think you should have one of those, Manish. You should.
They're not big money.
Can I buy? Would you guys think it was a bit naff though if I bought lots of stickers so that it says Senna on the side as if I was
tricky. As long as you had a pair of leather trousers on.
I'll do
Yeah,
it.
and white
I'll do
socks.
Chris Cooper.
I've actually got three. One of which I have, two of which I'm after. I've got a W201 190, but I want a 190 2.6 auto.
Yep.
That's what
Sportline.
I want.
Sportline.
With the 20 spoke, the 20 hole
Yeah, that's
wheel.
the sport line. You got that wheel, the bigger wheel with the different offset and the
The
suspension.
sport line, exactly it. Seat 126 560 SEC, because that's just the boss.
Yeah.
Oh.
And I had a 91 SL 500 129, which I'd love again. I know it'd be disappointing compared to modern one, because you think actually they were a bit old, but that 129, that 90, so the one with the plastic body.
Yeah,
part,
the phase one. Yeah.
The phase one body panels bit, 500 SL. Those would be.
Yeah.
So I'm after those two. I've had that one. I'm after the other two. But there's so many others.
So for me, I think his cleverest design is the 129, because it somehow takes Mercedesness. It takes that geometry that Manish talks about and makes it into a swoopy little sports car. How do you do that?
Yeah, with an isosceles triangle.
Because it's geometrical, but it's also got curves. If you look at the wheel arch shapes of a 129, they're very soft, they're very feline, but it's got these massive long battleship lines that run down it that just say "Don't fuck with me" on the autobahn. So it's a sort of it's the iron fist in the velvet glove. It's a terrible cliche.
And that badge in the grill, the badge in the grill.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it just says any part of me, don't fuck with me. And I think I've never been in a 73, which was the crazy one with the 7.3, but I did get spanked around some circuit and then get to drive myself an SL70 that was owned by the factory. One of those weird, that was the engine that went in the Zonda, and they now get bought just so you can butcher the engines out of them. But an SL70, I think, would be in my garage. The other one I think of as being peak Bruno, because they don't really get spoken about that much. But this for me embodies, this is peak Mercedes. This is when Mercedes is offering something that no one else necessarily was at a price no one else could justify. And this was design, quality, and engineering in a package that actually sort of wasn't readily available anywhere else, and it was difficult to get in the UK. And that's a 300 TE 4MATIC.
Yeah.
Everyone, they're a disaster to buy now, I think.
There's one for sale at Bramley Cars, isn't there? It's been there for a long time with the roof box.
Yeah, but if in 1989 you were working for Goldman's and you wanted to drive to, Verbier with your young family, that's right. What you go in. You could buy a BMW that would do the same thing, and for about 28,000. But this would probably cost you 45,000. Would be significantly slower, and you'd never be able to sell the bugger. But actually, that for me, in a dark blue with the check cloth interior, is where I'd be.
Yeah. I think that is the best, actually.
Okay, so that's. I think were we too miserable? Do you think, or was there some levity in there as well?
I'm going to say something about Lola then.
Yes.
Okay, you've got 2 minutes.
Well, I didn't even need that. So I had a really lovely, lovely time. I picked her up. I took her to Rockies. And when I picked her up from DK Engineering, lovely Luke and lovely Phil said, "Don't leave just yet. Let us show you a couple of absolutely glorious cars from the 1960s. So they showed me a 250 short wheelbase, and they showed me a 250 Lusso. And both of these had their interiors completely redone by Rockies. And they said, look, if really O'Rourke's are offering to do the interior of your car for the kind of money that they are, don't just go for a silly refit. Don't get someone just to take out your seats, put in new leather, and that's the end of it." And that got me going. So I went off on a bit of a research odyssey, and I'll send you all. You actually have the photographs that O'Rourke's have sent. They've basically taken the inside of the car out and laid them out as if they're an Airfix kit, just minus the sprue. It's an extraordinary photo. And what I've done is I've researched 330 GT2 Plus 2s and 250 Lusos, and I think I have the perfect interior. It will be 70%. Chris has put a bloody stopwatch on. This is so mean. feel like I'm a mastermind. So I think I've got 70% 456 GTM, but 30% of it is going to be a 60s Ferrari.
It's
Just
great.
a few very small details. So it'll be completely bespoke, completely unusual, and I'll know it's mine. And
Yeah.
That's
wait
great.
and see.
And that's
Or
the
your
bit
bank, or
I
your bank
love.
managers.
And I think that's something that will become increasingly important for all of us that are car tragics. Renew something that's already yours, personalize it. And maybe that's why we don't buy new Aston Martins. It's because we want to go and take something that's old and have another go at it. And on that subject, if you're coming to the Bristol Scramble on Sunday, you can see my M5 estate with its, wait for it, corduroy interior.
Ooh,
Oh, that's the timer. Well timed. On that note, thank you very much for my fellow podcasters, Neil Clifford, Chris Cooper, and Manish Pandey. We look forward to boring you again next week.